So I've gone for a nice hammer tone gunmetal grey. It helps hide all those imperfections. If this was normal rubber, you could tear it, because you can actually tear rubber. In the old days, there's always Teflon tape, thread tape, HDF, PVC, whatever it's called. The only thing they've changed on this was when I was a kid, it was in fluid ounces, and now it's in grams. All men know that chafe is not good. While we're waiting on the parts for the gearbox, it's time to service all the ancillary bits. This is the main intercooler for the engine. So I'll pull this down, strip it down, rod it, clean out all the gunk, clean it up, and rebuild and repaint. That's the next little project. This is the engine intercooler pulled apart. So apart from the end seal's looking a bit second-hand, she's pretty good nick. The anode is really good. It's quite surprising how good that is. She looks pretty good. If you look through, you can actually see light through each of the cores. So they're not full of gunk, which is good. I'll still give it a rod, or I might just use my pressure cleaner and get it out that way. In here, all looks good. Now, for those of you that don't know what a intercooler does, is the engine is cooled by water, and two ways of cooling it. You can either run salt water through the engine to keep it cool, or the preferred method is to keep the fresh water with coolant in the engine and then run the coolant through this unit. This is the fresh water in and out, and this is raw water, seawater, gets pumped in here and comes back out again into the ocean. And what that does, because you've got all these cores in here, you've got a massive surface area. So the raw water, seawater, comes in and interacts with the engine water, but not physically. There's a barrier, a copper barrier between them, but with that large surface area, the cool raw water coming in cools the coolant coming out. I think I made a bit of a mash-up of that explanation, but that's what an intercooler does. We have one for the main engine, and the next one I'm going to service, the one we had fixed in Costa Rica quite a while ago, is the next one I'm going to service. But this one looks pretty good. That's depends how you earth your system on your boat. Some people like to earth all their components, other people don't. There's two schools of thought about it. So that's your earthing point. In and out raw water, in and out coolant, and anode goes in there. Now the anode is sacrificial, so it's a zinc anode. Some use magnesium anodes, which are even more sacrificial on aluminium boats and things. But the zinc anode is sacrificial, so it corrodes before the copper does. So that's just what all this does. As you can see, the end caps are fine. They're brass end caps, a copper unit, rubber seals which have perished a bit. They're still holding their integrity, but I'll make up some new ones out of some insertion rubber. For this, that's about it. This is the intercooler for our transmission, for our gearbox. Same principle, it's a bit simpler. It has the automatic transmission fluid, the ATF, going in, goes through and back out again, while the raw water comes in and out. There's no sacrificial anode on this. It's only got a bleeding, I think it's bleeder. I don't think that is an anode in there. Let's have a little feel. No, it's just a bleeding hole, just to get the last of the air out of the system. So this works exactly the same as the other one, just a bit smaller, a bit simpler, and doesn't have the same capacity. But I was thinking about it, you can have a look at this one. You can see quite clearly, I've cleaned this one out, so she's like brand new in there. But I was thinking about my explanation of how it works, which didn't really, was a bit left-handed. It works just like a radiator in a car. The coolant goes in and out of the radiator, but instead of air pushing through to cool it, you have water pushing through to cool it. So exactly the same principle as the radiator in a car, except it uses water as a cooling agent and not air. So there you go. I'll try to simplify it for you. Here we are at the painting station. They've got rid of all the loose stuff and tidied everything up. I've taped off everything I don't want paint on. So what I'm going to apply now is a wattle kill rust edge primer. So that'll give me a good surface for the final top coat.
What have you done? Everything's gone army. I can't see anything.
Yeah, it's all camouflaged. I've just painted all the brackets. These are two brackets for the gearbox intercooler. This is the bracket for the engine intercooler. Painted the end caps. Yeah.
And it's going to get the...
Well, it hasn't got painted, it's just been undercoated with an etching primer.
And it's going to be coloured. We don't know what colour yet.
It's either going to be black or white. Black, I think, because intercooler should be black. Might make the brackets a contrasting colour.
So that looks pretty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see them.
Yeah.
Just put a coat of satin varnish over these. They're nearly ready to go back in. I'll do another coat and then it should be good.
The old painting tree's fairly full today. We've got lots of pieces on here. So I've gone for a nice hammer tone grey, gunmetal grey. It helps hide all those imperfections. It looks pretty schmick. In fact, I reckon it looks schmicker than a rat with a gold tooth, or I'll go he.
What are you up to?
I painted all my components. I've made up some new insertion rubber gaskets to replace these ones that were knackered. Just using standard insertion rubber. I always keep a roll handy. I'm also using RTV blue as a sure to be sure on this. One little tip actually. Whenever you're using tube of silicone, before you put the lid back on, squeeze it up so that it's proud, then screw it on. Because a lot of this stuff is air cured, and if you leave a little bit of air in there, the first bit will go rock hard and you'll waste the whole tube. Good little tip. So I've made up these new gaskets. You don't need any spring washers or anything on here because this is actually sprung. The cap is sprung, so that'll hold it all together. So now it's just a matter of putting it down without getting RTV everywhere. Look at that. And have I got the right spanner? Yeah, I'm working in these funny numbers again. This is 9/16. It sort of takes me back to when I was little, when we used to be imperial. So we just tighten that down. Now I've just tightened it down. I haven't fully tightened it because I'd like this RTV to cure first. But squeezed out all the way around so we know we have a seal. So I've done that side. Now I'm going to do this end. And it's spotless in there. It's like brand spanking new. I'll put the anode back in. I'll put thread tape on the anode. I'll clean this up with a wire brush so we get a good contact there for the earth, and that will be good to go. This one just needs the where's my other cup here? This one just needs new thread tape on, and these nipples screwed back in. So that's that one done. Then I'll put all the clamps together on the bracket. That came up all right. This was looking really shabby. So the good thing about this hammer tone paint, it hides everything. I mean, it still looks shabby, but that's the way this bracket looks. So I'll put it all back together. This time though, I'm going to line this with insertion rubber. So when I put the 2 hose clamps on, that'll be lined with insertion rubber, and same with this one. When I clamp that back on here to hold it on, I'll put insertion rubber around that, so everything's mounted properly. I'll put stainless steel bolts in this time. It had cast iron ones or mild steel ones before. So this will have stainless steel bolts going back on. So we'll have 3 different metals: copper, mild steel and aluminium. No, just 2. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. There you go.
Action.
You can actually put these end caps back on without the rubber gasket, because back 40 years ago, all gaskets were rubber or paper or combination. We didn't have things that were this good. I mean, this stuff is incredible. The grey and the blue are just 2 amazing products. We use the grey to repair Hypalon and PVC dinghies, and it's just a great product. So if you're at a pinch, if it was leaking, you didn't have insertion rubber to replace the broken seal, just get your RTV blue out. You just fill it on around all the edges, and next thing you know, you've got a gasket like new.
What's the difference between the grey and the blue?
The blue is for electronic vehicles which have sensors which don't like the chemicals in the grey, and it doesn't go as hard as the grey.
Okay.
So it's what I prefer to use when I'm rebuilding these sort of things. There's other products I use as well. So just remember, before you put the cap back on, squeeze it out so it's proud.
And then you just break that hard bit off when you open it, do you?
Well, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't even go hard.
Oh, okay.
Depending on the product. I always keep this in the fridge. Whenever Wendy goes to the fridge on the 4-wheel drive, there's always so many tubes of silicone RTV. There's tubes of glue for tyres. I keep everything in the fridge because it lasts longer. You can see the manufacturer here. It was C Camp, Bellingham, WA. WA is not Western Australia because this is American.
Is that Washington?
Washington, there you go. It's definitely not WA because nothing is made in Australia. So it is Washington. Washington State, which is up in the Pacific Northwest, for those of you that don't know. It's also where my other sister lives.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful place, so the Pacific Northwest. We can't wait to get back up there.
Back up there. Just from the outside in this time.
And as Wendy knows, if there's anything written on anything, what do I always like to have it?
Well, you like to have it the right way up.
Yep, so this is going to face up.
It's the OCD in him.
So that's the OCD in me, as all my friends will attest to.
You like to have it all the same way.
It's all got to be perfect. Even all the screws when I build something have to line up. So again, I'm just going to screw this down, say 80%.
So this stuff comes out.
So just so it squeezes out. And you ask why? Why do I do this?
Make a seal.
No. Why? Because if I was to screw it all the way down right now when this hadn't gone off, 90% of it would squeeze out.
Okay.
Right? If I leave it now just so a little bit has squeezed out all the way around, I can see it's a perfect seal. Leave it now till tomorrow so that this goes hard or starts to cure. Then do the last half a turn on the bolt. I compress it. I've got something to compress.
Yeah.
At the moment I haven't got anything to compress apart from the rubber. So it's just a sure to be sure thing. So anyway, that's the right way up. This is all clean. It's all tested, all good. I've just got to screw the earthing bolt nut back on, put a new washer on there. And
are you going to make it a pretty colour?
This is a pretty colour.
Oh, okay.
This is the new look.
Oh, okay.
This is the industrial look of Nutshell. So I'm going to make some insertion rubber mounts now, because this actually mounts on the boat. That goes there, and that mounts there, and that mounts there.
Okay.
So I'll put all this together. I won't do it now, but I'll make up the spaces now. I'll find some hose clamps the right size, so it's all ready for tomorrow. First of all, screw these back in. Another good thing to carry on the boat is the old stag. A lot of you will know that this is a must. In the old days, there's always Teflon tape, thread tape, HD of PVC, whatever it's called. These ones are just a Teflon. Works just as well, the old Teflon tape. I prefer to use Stag. Stag is just an incredible product. You use it on air, steam, diesel, hydraulic, anything. It's just seals beautifully. So a dab of that. I'll show you how to use it. It may come out a bit runny when you start. No, it's fine. So a dab of this on your connection. Start down low because it'll work into the thread. That's a bit of overkill, but anyway, a bit of that and whack her in.
What does it do?
It's a sealer, joining. It's a jointing cement, a jointing paste.
Okay.
So that's an old school term.
Your paste sounds very old school.
Yeah. So we just nip it up. This is a tapered thread, so it seals. Even seals because it's tapered, but I want extra seal on it. This is the air bleeder, which has to be at the top, of course. My hydraulic lines go this way, so this needs to go another 180. And as you can see, the old Stag has squeezed out, formed a seal all the way around. Good as gold. So a bit of Stag on the next one. Now this doesn't ever go rock hard. It's always a bit tacky. So don't expect it to go rock hard. And the good thing about Stag, you can always undo what you've done up.
And have they changed the packaging in?
No, this packaging.
It looks like it's come out of the 50s.
The only thing they've changed on this was when I was a kid, it was in fluid ounces, and now it's in grams. But I've been using this, God, since I started rebuilding engines when I was about 7 years old.
It looks like it.
It's a great product.
It does, I love it.
If you have a look in my cupboard over here in the workshop, there's not a little helping style of liquid that I don't have. Now you can see that one went straight in.
Yeah.
That sometimes happens.
Is that good or bad?
It's
Is it
good.
better or not better?
I prefer to have a
Go
bit of
straight
tension
in.
on it, but anyway,
Okay.
you can see that's squeezed out beautifully all the way around. Now that will go 3/4 hard over time. So they're lined
How
up.
much time? Like a week or 24 hours?
24 hours.
Okay.
It'll never go rock hard. Now what I usually do is I will block one off, put my air in there and with a gauge on, and I'll pressurise this and then let it sit overnight, and I'll check the air, make sure it hasn't dropped at all overnight, and that would just tell me that it's a good seal, because this is oil flowing through here. It's not just water, so I want everything to be spot on. So that's that one done. I think it's nearly beer o'clock.
I reckon.
So products, yeah, these two you've got to have on your boat if you like repairing things. If you're a millennial, you don't need any of that, just buy a new one.
What, a new boat?
I think Wendy's going to cut that.
We'll see. What's insertion rubber, babe?
You always sneak up on me. And what's insertion rubber? Insertion rubber is natural rubber. It's not the man-made stuff. This is natural rubber. But what makes it insertion rubber is it has a woven membrane inserted in it, which gives it lots of. That's a good example.
So much strength.
Lots of strength. If this was normal rubber, you could tear it, because you can actually tear rubber.
Take 3.
Take 3. Insert this.
Just pretend that you're not pulling it apart.
This woven in bit that's inserted into the rubber is why it's called insertion rubber, and it just gives it strength. So we don't need strength for what I'm using it for here, but this is going to just line this clamp.
For protection.
Going to go around that. For protection.
For vibration.
What can happen being mounted on an engine? This steel, copper. Steel's a lot harder than copper. Not electrolysis, yes, but with vibration, it can actually cut through the copper.
Oh my god!
Right?
Oh my goodness!
Start a leak. So I like to put a bit of insertion rubber into most things that, just to stop chafe. All men know that chafe is not good. So we always try and minimise chafe. I'll do the same with this one. Again, mild steel going on to copper, vibration. Let's say the hose clamp worked a bit loose, vibration. This can easily chew through the copper. So all we're doing is minimising downtime or making our boat as safe as we can.